All right, making a quick video here. Want to go over a few trades that I took. I'm gonna speed this up. I did have one short for the S&P 500. I ended up closing it after a few points. Not the biggest deal, but I did have many. At this point, I'm really looking at potentially going long here for the Nasdaq. Really, just one micro at this point. I ended up getting in based off of what I was seeing here on the DOM. I kind of skipped it a little bit, but you were seeing just some pushing here. Clearly, there are some sellers here, and price ended up pushing up fairly aggressive. But okay, you want to see what the ideal follow through would be, and as soon as we kind of push up and a little bit of a stop run, we immediately found our way back. So okay, that's fine. So I'm gonna speed this up just a little bit more. John did mention that the tape can be a bit illiquid. And just want to give an example of here. I had my stop at the 42s and essentially got lucky right there. Definitely could have got stopped out, but that's the way it goes sometimes. So you will see what the response is from that new low that we just saw here. I'll speed this up just a little bit. And again, this is still within that same minute candle, the next candle from that low that we saw. And at this point, I'm getting a little bit uncomfortable. You can see the kind of wiggling around, checking a higher time frame, just to see, does this actually make sense? Is this something I still want to be in around a time where I'm just kind of looking around, flailing a little bit? We ended up pushing up here, going back to that initial balance low. So you would say, okay, what's the response for that move? That's something that's held and sustained. It's only been 20 minutes within this 1 minute candle, and as soon as we push up we immediately come back down. So that was definitely fairly worrisome. I did look over here to a new for me to get out, and I can even look here at these 51s. We really shouldn't come back here, but for whatever reason, I was really focused on just really leaving my stop and just letting it be there. Of course, I do get stopped out, and it was with much of a violence that low was broken. So I'm going to speed this up just a little bit. And then you'll see just this low being taken. So again, we got gaps all in here, but it was immediately retraced. So say what you will about that, I'm stopped out. So now we look for let's just see what the MGI shows. Let's just see what happens next. All right, so fast forward just a little bit more. So again, I'm checking my higher time frame. If you notice, I do end up putting my AOIs on, and I understand like where we are at this point. And I'm seeing just a good reminder. This is somewhere that I do want to possibly buy with the higher time frame continuation of the trend. So I clearly see buyers are kind of pushing up at this point. You can see it in here. But again, what was the reaction? They push up, they go back down. Even the same thing right there. They push up, immediately go back down. So we're clearly seeing buyers. I'm just waiting for a good point to get in. I end up putting my limit here at the 25s. But that was definitely a bit passive for what we're looking at. And like you can see my mouse kind of moving in the middle of the screen there. I understand that this is where I want to initiate, but that's a bit too passive for what we're looking at here. So as time started to pass, fast forward just a little bit, I understood that, okay, I just missed a move. As John mentioned, you have to be okay with that. I wasn't being aggressive. I was being a bit passive there. So, all right, that's fine. So my job is just to continue waiting and stay flat and wait to something makes sense. So if this is the 1 minute candle that we're seeing here, we would assume that you would have some kind of sustain of these prices, ideally these 30s. I end up moving my limit that I had here at these 25s, because if prices go down that far, then I wouldn't want to be in that trade anymore regardless. So at this point, we're just waiting. I'm gonna fast forward this just a little bit more. We see that that minute candle closed. So we want to see what the response is here. As we push down, clearly we're unable to stay at these 45s. And then that's when I ended up marketing again at this moment. And I'll actually go back. So what's important here is that as the market pushed down, I noticed that there was a clear line. They couldn't get under these 44s. That's where my stop is going to be. I understand where I'm going to get out. As we work our way back up, this is the area that I wanted to hit in around these lower 50s. And then you'll see me mark it in here. So at this point, I'm in. What is the response once we get in at these low 50s? What do we see as far as like any sort of continuation? And again, this is just normal speed here. Clearly we're having some buyers that are pushing this price up, which makes me, feel a little more comfortable. But at this point, I still have my stop under the 44s. But as we have this move lower, I have my hotkeys, and you can see me put in my stop in at break even. It's not necessarily to be at break even. That's why I'm wiggling my mouse there. It's not necessarily to be at break even. It's more that if we came down to these 55s, there's no reason we should push lower, go back up, and then come back down again. I don't want to see what's under here. Even though you can see here that it's really not too much, and I think this stop here was the 33s. Just from a momentum standpoint, it didn't make sense for me to stay in this trade any longer. I understood that I missed the entry at the 25s, and I was taking price risk opposed to information risk at these 50s. Um, but with the poorer position, there's no reason for me to stay in. So I put my stop in at the 54s. I put my entry in at the 54s, and I had my stop at the 44s. And as it pushed up and came back, I was okay with being stopped out at breaking even. All right, let me go ahead and stop that there.